Hello everyone, welcome back. So, in this lesson I'm going to go through some revision topics, and this is mostly just finding the area of a rectangle, a square and a triangle. And hopefully this topic isn't too difficult, as you may have already learned how to find the areas of these shapes, but I'm just going to go through some more examples to help you consolidate your understanding. Now, before I get into areas, I'm just going to go over some revision questions of how to convert units. Okay, so let's just take an example. So for section A, let's just do question 1. Okay. Now question 1 says, how do you convert 60 millimeters to centimeters? Now what you can refer to is this little table here. So in this table it says 10 millimeters is equal to 1 centimeter. So if 10 millimeters is equal to 1 centimeter, how many centimeters is 60 millimeters? So what you can do is, because you multiply by 6 to go from 10 millimeters to 60 millimeters, all you need to do is multiply by 6 to this number. So this should be equal to 6 centimeters. Well, so hopefully that's not too difficult. I'll go through a few more examples. So say question 5. Question 5 says 430 centimeters is equal to how many meters? Right. So we need to make sure we find the correct information in this table to work out the question. So it says 100 centimeters equals to 1 meter. So 100 centimeters is equal to 1 meter. Now how many meters is 430 centimeters? So there's a few ways to do it. If you can do it straight away, that's okay. You can just do it your way. If you're not sure what you need to do, what you can do is, so this is what I suggested. It's called the cross multiplication method. So what that means is you draw a cross over here, and you have to multiply the numbers based on the cross. So what you have to do is multiply 430 by the 1 and then divide it by 100. Okay, so that should be 430 times by 1 divided by 100. So that should give you 4.3. And that will be the answer to the question mark here, so 4.3 meters. So this is a cross method, and it's actually quite an important thing that you should know, because later on in math you'll come across this in some other examples. So make sure you understand this. But if you know how to do this question just the normal way, I mean not the normal way, but if you just know that the answer is 4.3 meters without any working out, that's also fine. Alright, let's take a look at a slightly harder question. Question 16. So question 16 says 0.8 centimeters is equal to how many millimeters? Alright, so let's find the information that's relevant. So in this case it says, so we need a relationship between a millimeter and centimeter. So it says 10 millimeters equals to 1 centimeter. But we want to make sure that we're writing this in the correct order. So that means you have a centimeter here and a millimeter here. So that means 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters, right? Right, and you can use the cross multiplication method that I explained earlier. So you draw a cross, and then all you have to do is multiply the numbers based on the cross. So I do 0.8 multiplied by 10 divided by 1. So what should this give me? This should give me 8. Okay, so the answer is 8. So the question mark will represent 8. So the answer is 8 millimeters. Alright, so if you use this cross method, it's actually pretty convenient. Alright, so hopefully that's clear. I'm just going to move on to section B. So section B is slightly more challenging, but should be alright. I have faith in you guys. A square is a plane figure with 4 equal sides. All angles are right angles. Yep, so that's something we know. So in a square, all angles are 90 degrees because they're right angles. And to work out the area of a square, we just multiply the one side. Actually, we just have to square one side, because we know that a square has 4 sides equal. So I just have to multiply the length with the breadth. But the breadth is equal to the length, right? So I can just square the length. And the area of a rectangle, hopefully you guys already memorized this formula. Just multiply the length with the base. I mean length with the breadth. It doesn't matter. Just basically you have to multiply the 2 sides. And a triangle has 3 sides. To calculate the area, you have to multiply half times the base times height. So if you still remember the homework from 2 days ago, half times base times height gives you the area of the triangle. Alright, let's go through some examples. So, section B. Let's just have a look at question, say, 2, for example. Remember, the area of a square, you just have to square one of the sides. Okay, so the area is equal to 7 squared, which equals to 49. Make sure you write the units, centimeters squared. So it's quite easy, as you can see. Now, question 8. To find the area of a rectangle, you can write the formula down. So the area equals to length times the base. Length times the breadth. So in this case, the length is 14 times by the breadth, which is 8, which equals to 112 centimeters squared. Alright, so hopefully there's no dramas with these kind of questions. The next one asks you to find the area of triangles. Okay, so the only difference between a triangle and a rectangle is that you need to multiply the area by 2. You need to multiply the area by half. So I'm just going to show you why. So let's take a look at question 11. So to work out the area of the triangle, remember the area equals to half times base times the height. Right. So in this case, it's equal to half. Now, what does the base equal to? Remember, the base needs to be a side of the triangle. So 14 is one of the sides. So I times it by 14 and times by the height. Now the height, remember from what I said earlier, the height can be inside the triangle or the outside the triangle. In this case, it's inside. Times by 10. And you can type this onto your calculator. You should get 70 centimeters squared. Right, so hopefully there's not too much dramas there. I'm just going to go through some more questions just so that you get a better understanding. So let's take a look at question 16. So as you can see, this is going to be a square because each side that has the 2 lines on it. The 2 lines just means that each side with the 2 lines are going to be equal. So this shape has 4 sides being equal and it has a right angle. So this is a square. So the area of a square is basically the length of one of the sides squared, right? So in this case, it's equal to 85 squared, which equals to 72.25 millimeters squared. Alright, so let's just look at some questions in C. C is meant to be the hard section, but in my opinion, this section is actually not too challenging. The only reason they make it the hard section is because there's a combination of rectangles, squares, and triangles, and they want you to kind of know which formula that you need to use. So let's take a look. So let's just take a look at question 2, for example. So if you know, this is a rectangle because one side is 3 and one side is 5.8. So it's not a square. It's not a triangle because it has 4 sides, right? So to find out the area, you do length times the breadth. So hopefully that formula, it has been ingrained inside your brain. So the length could be 5.8 and the breadth is 3. Now, with a rectangle, it doesn't really matter which one you pick, the length or the breadth. Say if I pick 3 as the length and the breadth as 5.8, 3 times 5.8 is going to be the same as 5.8 times 3. So don't need to be too worried about which side is the length and which side is the breadth. And you multiply this out, you should get, let's see, 17.4. And make sure you write the units in square meters. Right, so I'm not going to go through any more of these examples as I am fairly confident that you can do these questions because essentially all you need to know is the 3 formulas. The 3 formulas are the area of a square, which is length squared. Okay. Area of a rectangle, which is length times base. Area of a triangle, which is half times base times height. Now, if anything, I think the hardest section is actually section 8, where you have to convert units to the appropriate length. And when it comes to conversion, just make sure that you remember this table. But I'm going to give you something else which may hopefully help you, okay? So I'm going to start with km, m, cm, and then mm. So if you still remember, when you go from a larger unit to a smaller unit, you need to what? Multiply by 1,000. So going from km to meter, multiply by 1,000. That means when you go from meter to km, you divide by 1,000. When you go from meters to centimeters, you also multiply by 1,000. Just going to move this thing away because it's kind of blocking the way here. Right. And when you go from millimeter to meter, you divide by 1,000. Right. Now the centimeter is a special one because centimeter lies between meter and millimeter. So to go from meter to centimeter, you need to multiply by 100. Because 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. And similarly, to go from centimeter to meter, you have to divide by 100. And the last thing you know is going from centimeter to millimeter. Times by 10. Going from millimeter to centimeter, you divide it by 10. So I hope this is quite clear to you. What you can do is, rather than using this table, you can use this table as well. Okay. And hopefully by using this table, you can kind of understand the questions that I asked in, I think, 2 lessons ago, where I asked you to do these exercises. So I know that these exercises can be a bit challenging, but I think if you use this diagram over here, hopefully the questions should become a lot easier. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you for listening. And remember, if you have any questions, just let me know on Google Classroom or post it in front of the whole class. Thank you for listening.